Hi guys, I just want to share a Botox procedure that I did a week ago. It was injecting the wrong spot, so I ended up with a droopy eye and also a bigger eye. I called my primary doctor because I was very scared. It had never happened that to me before. So he prescribed the medications I've been taking for a week. I just want to raise awareness before you go to a place and get your Botox done. Try to research the place and also who the injector is.
Ladies and gentlemen, I fear we have completely lost the plot because somehow in the year 2026, Botox has gone from being this serious cosmetic procedure that people use to whisper about to something women are booking on their lunch break like they're getting a gel manicure. And I'm sorry, but when did injecting something into your face that literally stops your muscles from moving become casual? No, seriously. Because the way people talk about Botox now, you would think it was lip gloss, baby Botox, preventative Botox, Masseter Botox, trap Botox, lip flips, brow lifts, neck bands, chin dimples, bunny lines. Girl, at this point, what part of the face is still allowed to move? And before anyone starts, this is not me saying Botox has no purpose. It does. Some people use it medically for migraines, TMJ, muscle issues, excessive sweating, and other real conditions. Some people get cosmetic Botox and love their results. That is fine. But what we are not going to do is pretend this is just a cute little beauty appointment with zero risk. Because these women are coming online talking about droopy eyelids, crooked smiles, migraines, vision problems, panic attacks, weakness, trouble swallowing, brain fog, and feeling like nobody warned them. And the scariest part is that some of them were not even first-timers. Some of them had been getting Botox for years. So clearly, the conversation needs to be a little bit louder.
I'd been getting Botox for 10 years. I got my regular injections last August, and the next day, instantly, I knew something was wrong. I had weakness in all of my extremities. I had physiological, like fight or flight, panic, anxiety, debilitating brain fog. I had full body muscle spasms, like all of these issues. And finally, 6 months later, I spoke to this derm at Mount Sinai, and he had me send in like what the symptoms were, the timeline, the progression. And within 2 minutes, he said, that's textbook Botox poisoning. You know, for me, it was really just time. And I did a lot of acupuncture, and those two things were kind of the only things that helped, but it was really quite shocking. And I think it just never gets reported.
What has been the most shocking thing that you have discovered that blew your mind?
I think how bad Botox really is. So I don't know if most people know it, but it's the most toxic substance on earth. So that's just kind of crazy that over the years we've been conditioned to think it's okay.
We know there are medical uses for it. Right now it's being used for migraines, for example, and it can be very, very helpful. But the tox part of Botox is a toxin. And this toxin acts by paralyzing your muscle.
Botox is not preventative medicine and is literally aging you faster. Toxin that comes from Clostridium botulinum, which is a bacteria, and it paralyzes the muscles in your face. When you paralyze a muscle, it causes atrophy, muscle shrinking. When a muscle atrophies, what ends up happening is you lose microvasculature. You lose the blood flow that nourishes the muscle and the skin surface. Optimal blood flow is anti-aging. It's how we carry nutrient and collagen to the skin surface. Not only are we thinning out our face, reducing our muscle mass, but we're also reducing the blood flow to our skin, increasing the aging process. What are a few things that are actually preventative? These are things that bring blood flow to the skin surface. This is going to be sauna therapy. It is going to be making sure you are well hydrated. You can do a vampire facial. That also helps because the microneedling will bring the blood to the surface and also help with collagen synthesis. Protein, minerals, B vitamins, things that synthesize collagen while also optimizing blood flow, reducing substances and alcohol. That is really it.
I tried Botox for the first time back in 2020, so about 6 years ago, and I have a history of autoimmune disorders. When I was 26, I was diagnosed with 2 different autoimmune disorders. I have since overcome them through diet, supplementation, lifestyle, etc. I, in 2020, was feeling great, and I just thought, kind of like everybody else, hey, I can make this like my 80-20, like my balance. Like I'm doing everything else right. I don't put a lot of toxins in and on my body. I can handle a little bit of Botox. So in May of 2020, I went and got very, very conservative, just 3 units on each eye, right around my crow's feet. I didn't do anywhere else. I just wanted to start very small and just make sure I didn't have a reaction. And I seemed to do fine with that. So I went back later that year in December and I let them do the same 6 around my eyes. And then I let them do a little bit in my forehead. Well, that evening, after I got it done in the morning, that evening I'm laying in bed and all of a sudden my husband had just fallen asleep and I was just kind of sitting there and I was like, man, I cannot catch my breath. And I started Googling like side effects of Botox, and turns out like literally the actual like botulism poisoning warning is that you can stop breathing, have trouble breathing, have trouble swallowing. And so that's exactly what was happening to me. I had pretty much an immediate reaction, within 12 hours of that happening. I stayed awake for 24 hours that night. In hindsight, I absolutely should have taken myself to the emergency room. I did not. I think I was very embarrassed. I didn't want to wake my husband up and be like, listen, I got Botox and I'm dying. So I just like toughed it out. I stayed up all night long to make sure I didn't die in my sleep because that's what I was afraid. I was afraid I was going to stop breathing in my sleep. So following that, I started getting all kinds of migraines in my jaw, and it basically just turned into like over the course of 2 years from like 2020 to like 2022, I just had systemic inflammation. It re-triggered a lot of my autoimmune stuff. I had chronic fatigue again. I had issues with food that I had overcome in the past. It was not good. So
one thing that really stood out to me is how normalized Botox has become for young women. You have girls in their 20s getting Botox for wrinkles they do not even have yet, and they are being told it is preventative, which is such a clever little marketing word because it makes Botox sound responsible. Like, oh, I'm not insecure. I am just preventing aging. Girl, preventing aging. You are 24. Your skin is still trying to figure out what adult moisturizer it likes. But that is how beauty culture works now. It finds something completely normal, like expression lines, and turns it into a problem before it even becomes a problem. You smiled? Better freeze it. You laughed? Careful, that might turn into a line. You raised your eyebrows? Emergency. Call the injector. And I think that is where things get weird. Because your face is supposed to move. You are supposed to look confused. You are supposed to laugh. You are supposed to cry without looking like you are giggling at a funeral. But social media has convinced people that the goal is to look smooth, frozen, filtered, and completely untouched by human emotion. And I just have one question. At what point did looking alive become the problem?
Hey Lisa, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you get?
I'm almost 37 years old and I get about 230 units, so let me explain why. I get it in my frown lines, my forehead lines, my crow's feet, my brow lift, a little bit in my buddy lines, chin dimples, DAOs. I get it in my masseters, my neck bands, and also my trapezius.
Christine, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you get?
I am 30, but turning 31. Forehead, frown lines, bunnies, crow's, chin, all the neck, 100 units.
Nurse Jessica, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you get?
I am 32 and I get 60 units of Botox. I get my forehead, frown, crow's, nose, lip flip, and my DAOs.
Lisa, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you get?
I'm 27 and I get 90. I get my platysmal, DAO, DLI, crow's, brow lift, and lip lift.
Hey Angie, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you have?
I'm 32 and I have 48 units. So I have 8 to my forehead, 20 to my frown lines, and then 20 to my crow's feet.
Jocelyn, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you have?
I am 26, turning 27. I have my forehead, frown, crow's, bunny, Nefertiti, and Masseters, and I want to say it's like 100 units.
Esther Schneblin, how old are you and how many units of Botox do you have?
Well, I'm 26. I have my foreheads, 11, crow's feet, the Nefertiti neck lift, and my Masseters, and in total I have 106 units.
You have to be very careful because if it gets into your bloodstream and it becomes systemic, it's affecting a lot of other nerve endings as well. It's not just doesn't just stay in your skin. And so, if you have a great detox capability, you're probably breaking it down fine. And most people probably have no issues, but there will be people who are affected by it systemically.
I've gotten Botox one time in my life and I will never be getting it again. I have nothing against Botox, by the way. I had a medical response that really impacted me and I had never heard of anything like this prior to me experiencing it. And then of course, once I looked into it after, there were a handful of people on the internet who had experienced something very similar. So this is more so just to raise a little bit of awareness. Getting into my story, my very first time getting Botox was August of 2024. So last year, I got it injected in 2 sites, technically 4. The first being my Masseter masseters, so my jaw muscles on either side for facial slimming. That was an aesthetic decision. The second site was a medical decision, my trapezius muscles here. I have a lot of pain and tightness from a severe auto accident that I was in 2015, just about a week after my injections. I woke up one day with ringing in my right ear. It was alarming because I never had anything like this before. That was the first sign that something was off, but at this point I never associated it back to the Botox. It just felt very random. Over the next week, so we're talking like 2 weeks now out from my Botox appointment, I was experiencing several different kinds of symptoms. The biggest one that is what's prompting me to speak about this was the headaches. I have never experienced headaches like that in my life. I've been on medications prior, like years and years ago, for migraines. This was something different. It was the most debilitating few months of my life. I felt like my head was being crushed every single day for months and months. And I'm choking up thinking about it because it was alarming. It was debilitating. And I'm so lucky that I work from home and I have the freedom to kind of choose my schedule. If I hadn't, I don't know what I would have done because it was a horrifying amount of pain. The last symptom that I had was anxiety and depression. Never connected any of these symptoms back to the Botox for the first month or 2 months, whatever it was. I know now it looks back and it seems obvious, but at the time it was just all these random things. The anxiety and depression felt completely separate as well. I didn't really know what to make of it, but I had visited the ER during this time. I had been to several of my regular kind of doctors and specialists. Looking back, it's funny because I majored in neuroscience in college. Obviously, I'm doing beauty now on TikTok, but yeah, my major was neuroscience in university, and we had a whole course on neurotoxin, or at least we had like a week of class studying it and how it works and how it's systemic. And Botox, as we know, is neurotoxin, but I just didn't, because we talk about it so casually when it comes to cosmetics, I just, again, had no idea that it would cause this kind of systemic reaction from my body. I mention that because I went to a neurologist. This is probably like the 5th or 6th provider that I'm seeing. And she said that the symptoms you're having, it aligns with Botox poisoning, especially given the timeline. Because at this point, I was desperate. I was so desperate. I was telling my providers everything about my life that year just to see if anything would kind of spark something in them. And lo and behold, it was the Botox. Obviously, there's no way to really kind of confirm or like officially diagnose that, but it all started clicking in my head after that connection was made. And there is one person here on the internet, a lovely angel, I'll put her username here. She's done several videos about having a very similar experience to me, and watching her videos after understanding my context and the relationship between Botox and my symptoms, it just reaffirmed everything for me.
Now let's talk about the bad Botox stories, because this is where things get very real. A lot of people think the worst thing that can happen is maybe a little bruise or a slightly frozen forehead. No. Some women are getting droopy eyelids. Some are getting uneven brows. Some are getting that shocked villain eyebrow where one brow is up here and the other one is living its own separate life. Some are getting smiles that do not move correctly. Some are getting Botox in their chin or jaw, and suddenly their mouth is pulling to one side. And yes, people love to say it wears off. Okay, but when? Because if your wedding is tomorrow, if you work on camera, if you have to go to work, if you have to drive, if you have to talk to people every day, 6 weeks does not feel temporary. 3 months does not feel temporary. 4 months of not recognizing your smile does not feel temporary. That is your face. And when your face looks different, you feel different. So I do not like when people downplay it like, oh, just wait it out. Wait it out where? Under a hoodie and sunglasses until my eyelid decides to clock back in. Be serious.
Every time I get Botox, I have to sit in my car for at least like 10 or 15 minutes and convince myself that it's just a vasovagal response. I'm not actually dying. I'm not going into anaphylactic shock, and I can breathe. My throat isn't closing up.
Went in for a consult with a very well-recommended practitioner, and within 15 minutes, this person was putting needles in my face. I had been very clear that I'd been wary about this. I only wanted a little bit of preventative.
Little baby Botox.
Little baby Botox, whatever that is. But there was no conversation. I think there's probably a waiver that I signed that said, do you have allergies? I'm thinking like medications. I'm not thinking about my food.
No, I would never think about that either, I don't think.
There was no test spots done to see if my body was going to be okay. I very much talked about being nervous because of an autoimmune and having a reactionary nervous system. Long story short, all of those were very negative. devastated. And I was like, oh, you're going to wake up in Hawaii with your daughters feeling so beautiful. 4 days later, I wake up in Hawaii with my daughters, and my daughters are crying because my face is completely collapsed. I woke up with an absolute migraine. I had a rarity where everything just went the opposite way. So my eyebrows dropped. I got huge dark circles. All the muscles shut off under my eyes. But the most agonizing part was I had never had headaches, and I had these massive migraines, and I couldn't go in the water and swim because my face was burning. I wore sunglasses the entire time. How do you look at your daughters when you're trying to tell them to be comfortable with their own skin and not have to change, and they're beautiful as they are? And I had an elective procedure. It's funny, right before she put the needles in my face, I was like, I feel like I'm gonna faint. Like, I feel really uncomfortable.
This is my smile before. Your girl had a decent smile. I have dimples, like, it's really all I had going for me. And then I developed really bad TMJ, and my doctor suggested that I get Botox on my masseter muscles, like right here. Well, I did. They over-injected me and injected in the wrong spot and paralyzed all of my facial muscles. So, this is my smile now. And this is 2 months in. Like, you guys should have seen it before.
Botox has ruined my life. In late July, I got some Botox units in my masseters for TMJ issues. And 2 weeks later, once it set in, my life completely turned on its head. My work has suffered. My relationships have suffered. I have deep neurological issues, a lot of muscle issues, nerve damage, nerve issues.
Because so many people don't know what the symptoms are to associate with Botox poisoning, and they don't even know where to report it. And oftentimes when they do report it, they are either dismissed or gaslit. They have trouble getting your thoughts together, like collecting your thoughts where you just can't seem to understand things clearly or communicate effectively. You may have trouble driving yourself to get the help that you need. Some people may feel dizziness or lightheadedness. In most cases of Botox poisoning, you will experience extreme anxiety. So if you have trouble putting those thoughts together, you don't seem like yourself, and it only happened after you had Botox, it's time to reconsider that follow-up visit.
Two scientific reason not to get Botox as somebody who sometimes gets Botox. Okay, so reason one is if you have a baby who is older than 2 months old, it's very important for their development that you can mimic their facial expressions. So if you're a primary caregiver working with an infant, you want to be able to smile when they smile and be shocked or concerned and they're shocked or concerned. So yeah, after they're 2 months old, stop getting Botox. It will really help their development. And then the second reason is actually both a reason to and a reason not to get Botox. So your 11s, there have been randomized controlled trials that show that if you freeze your 11s, you'll have fewer depressive symptoms. So if you struggle with depression, you might actually benefit from getting Botox in your 11s. Conversely, however, your Duchamp lines or smile, your globular lines on the side of your face, your smile lines, while it has not been done in a randomized control trial, there is theory that speculates that because smiling is so important for the opposite of depression, happiness, that overwhelming this by freezing it too much could actually also lead to depressive symptomology. So not quite as confirmed, but something to be wary of.
And then we have the more serious stories. Women talking about weakness, panic attacks, migraines, brain fog, trouble swallowing, slurred speech, vision changes, ringing in the ears, full body symptoms, and feeling like their nervous system was not acting normal after Botox. And I know this is the part where people get uncomfortable because Botox is so common that nobody wants to believe it could affect someone like that. But that is the problem with making cosmetic procedures too normal. People stop listening to the people who had bad reactions. They say, well, I get Botox and I'm fine. Okay, good for you. That does not mean everyone else is lying. They say, you probably went to a bad injector. But some of these women went to licensed professionals. They say, that is rare. Rare does not mean impossible. Rare still happens to someone. And when you are the person it happens to, statistics do not comfort you. You are not sitting there with a droopy eyelid, a crooked smile, or months of symptoms thinking, well, at least I'm uncommon. No, you are scared. And a lot of these women are saying the same thing. They wish they'd been told more before they sat in that chair.
In August of 2022, my friend got Masseter Botox for TMJ. That same day, she noticed she was having difficulty eating food normally. She said that her swallowing kind of felt weird, but she didn't think anything of it, and it just continued to get worse and worse until November, when she couldn't even eat a yogurt, and then she went to urgent care. When she went to urgent care, she had all the workup done. GI, neuro, autoimmune, ENT. She even went to her primary care doctor, and they tried to find out what was happening to her body, but all of her lab work came back normal. Once the toxicity really hit its peak in November, she started to look for help elsewhere, and that's where she found a Facebook group called Botox Disport, which is a help group for people experiencing side effects from Botox. What she found out happened to her is that her swallow glands were paralyzed. Think about it, Botox is a drug that paralyzes muscles as its mechanism of action, so somehow it ended up paralyzing her swallow glands. From what I hear about Botox, where you inject it is where it stays, and then it eventually leaves your body after a certain time. It's not indefinitely in your body. And again, doctors are not sure how or why this happened, but the toxin has remained in her body and she has experienced permanent paralysis. What's interesting is that permanent paralysis is not listed as a side effect. Dysphagia, which is difficulty swallowing, is. What happens when the difficulty swallowing becomes permanent? That Facebook group has 37,000 people in it, and that's just people that know about the Facebook group. Imagine how many more people there are experiencing side effects from Botox and just really feeling lost and lonely and isolated in those feelings. My friend said she had to cut out alcohol, caffeine, physical activity, certain supplements and vitamins, medications, even hair dye due to the chemicals, because those can make the symptoms worse or make new symptoms appear. For some reason, the toxin is still in her body, and it hasn't gone anywhere 2 years later. And I guess for some people, the toxin never leaves the body. For some people, it takes decades to weaken. It just depends on your body. Before anyone says anything, she says that she got her Botox done from the #1 injector in her area. This is a licensed professional that knows what they're doing. But for some reason, no doctor has been able to help her with her situation. She is very smart. Very, very smart, and I know she does her research before she does anything. She did her research and found that it could be a genetic composition that maybe predisposes certain people to experiencing side effects from Botox, but that hasn't been studied yet. So for right now, men and women are getting Botox without really understanding the life-altering consequences that this drug could have on your life, short-term and long-term. I mean, she said that this ruined her life, and after a year of trying to work through it and deal with it, she said that her swallow worsened and she continued to feel dizzy and weak and malnourished, that she had to go to get hospitalized, and they placed a feeding tube in order for her to get nutrients properly. Mind you, they did GI, neuromuscular workup again, and everything came back normal. She's 32 years old and she has to deal with a permanent paralysis of her swallow glands. It affects her social life, it affects her daily life, it affects every single part of her day-to-day activities.
I feel like I'm about to open up a huge can of worms, but it's time to talk about it, okay? I haven't gotten Botox in a while now. I felt like, honestly, my body was speaking to me like, hey, let's take a break from that. And boy, have I seen some differences since I stopped getting Botox, okay? Little backstory, I've gotten Botox since 2020. I had just turned 21. Thinking I need Botox. Are you kidding? That's a whole other conversation, but like, you don't need Botox in your 20s. That's just my opinion. I'm learning now 6 years later, okay? Since 2020, I've gotten Botox. That's 6 years. Were phases I went to injectors that made me look really botched for 21 years old. Why? I don't know. Then I found like really natural looking injectors and I ended up really liking the results, but I started noticing over time my vision was hella blurry. Like, I would be talking to a friend and I could not fully focus on their face ever. And even one of my best friends asked me, are you good? Like, you don't seem like yourself. But it's because I'm distracted during socializing, because I'm like, why can't I see anything? And I feel like I'm looking right past the person as if I like I literally could not see anything. And then slurred speech. I'm talking really bad stumbling on my words. Like, my brain could not, at a normal speed, compute what I needed to say and how to say it. Listen, I like speaking. I like yapping with friends. I like talking on social media. I've done this for a long time. Why could I never talk? It would scare me. Genuinely, since I have stopped getting Botox, I don't have those issues. My vision is back to normal. My speaking, back to normal. What are we telling girls that are in their 20s that they need Botox?
The other thing that bothers me is how fast these appointments can happen. You go in for a consult, and 15 minutes later, someone is coming at your forehead with a needle. Where was the conversation? Where was the medical history? Where was the have you had reactions before? Where was the let's start small? Where was the are the risks? Where was the steps of we're strong to actually need this? Because sometimes it feels like the beauty industry is moving people through like a drive-through. Hi, welcome to Pretty Forever. And I know that sounds dramatic, but look at what is happening. Botox is expensive. It wears off. You have to keep going back. The more areas you treat, the more maintenance you need. The more frozen one area becomes, the more your face compensates somewhere else. Then suddenly you need Botox for the forehead, then the crow's feet, then the bunny lines, then the jaw, then the neck, then the lip flip, then the trap Botox. At what point is it still self-care? And at what point are we just renting our faces from the beauty industry every 3 months?
We have a problem. My Botox gave me a droopy eyelid. I would just like to preface by saying that I have been getting Botox for the last 4, maybe 6 years, roughly around the time that I turned 28. I've only ever gone to 2 people to get it done, and this has never happened to me before. So what does one do when they get a droopy eyelid from their Botox? I feel like it's not that noticeable to other people, but it is driving me insane.
I don't know what happened. The Botox didn't take like it normally does. It's like, I don't know what I did.
Let me tell you about the Botox that I recently got, like 10 days ago. Not my first rodeo. I love Botox. I get my forehead, my frown, and my lips done. Right? If it's not for you, then do you, boo. But I love it. I go to a new place because my normal place is fully booked. She's doing the injections and she says, your forehead muscles, I can tell, are really, really strong. You're going to get something called spocking. She explained it. It sounded like a brow lift. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, I have hooded eyes. That's okay. Fast forward to the 10 days where it's nearly fully kicked in. Oh, she's spocking all right. What? I've never in my life been able to put my eyebrows up so high. I look like I'm judging the shit out of you. I can't look like the Grinch. If I go like this, I can smell what the Rock is cooking. I look like the kid from Maze Runner, except I paid for my eyebrows to look like this. And I can't help it because I'm so expressive. It's why I need the Botox in the first place. She's wild. She's got a mind of her own. She needs Botox to calm her the fuck down. Look at it. And this is giving ball sack. Like, it is not okay.
There's this misconception that Botox prevents aging, which is the furthest thing from the truth. What Botox actually does is cause muscle atrophy. If you're not aware of what muscle atrophy is, it is the thinning and wasting away of muscle tissue. It happens when muscle fibers shrink in size, leading to loss of muscle mass and sometimes function. So with getting Botox injected into your face, this actually leads to sagging and thinning of the skin, which means you'll need more to maintain a youthful appearance. This is why so many women around 33 are getting facelifts already. Also, Botox doesn't just stay in the injection site. There's studies that show and prove it travels throughout your nervous system and can also go into your brain. Sorry, what? Botox can migrate, so it can travel into your eyelids, causing droopy eyelids, causing asymmetry in your face, and uneven smiles. From my own personal experience, I've been getting Botox from age, I believe, 19, and I stopped getting Botox at 28. I am now 30. It's almost been an entire 3 years, I'll be 31 in January, that I stopped getting Botox. And when the Botox was wearing off, which it doesn't actually completely leave your system, when the Botox was wearing off, I noticed I started to clench. And I have never clenched before. My jaw was very tense and I was clenching at night, and this has never happened to me before. So the Botox was weakening my jaw, and when it started wearing off, my jaw did not know what to do. So my jaw was clenching like crazy. I also now notice that I have an issue with my eyebrows kind of like going like this. I am so disgusted by what I've been learning and researching and finding out about Botox. I wish that I knew what it was. I wish that I did more research. I wish that when you go into these places that they don't just give you a waiver to sign, that you actually read through everything. But I wish there was more transparency when it came to what you're getting injected into your face, because people don't know.
And let's talk about Masseter Botox, because this one has been all over social media. People get it for TMJ. People get it to slim the jaw. People get it because TikTok said it would make their face look softer, smaller, more feminine, more snatched. But then you have women coming back years later saying their jaw muscle shrunk, their face started sagging, they noticed jowls, their smile changed, or their chewing felt different. And I am not saying everyone who gets Masseter Botox will have that experience. But I am saying maybe we should stop acting like shrinking a muscle in your face is just a cute little beauty hack. Because muscles are there for a reason. Your jaw is not just there to look sharp in selfies. It helps you chew. It supports your face. It affects your expression. So if you weaken it over and over again, of course, some people may notice changes they were not expecting. And that is the theme with all of this. People are chasing one result, then discovering 5 side effects nobody made clear enough. And then we have Botox parties. I'm sorry, but who decided injections needed hors d'oeuvres? Because nothing says safe medical environment like wine, cheese, gossip, and someone casually freezing everyone's forehead in the living room. And I know people do it because it feels fun. It feels social. It feels cheaper. It feels less intimidating when all your friends are doing it too. But that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because now there is peer pressure. Now people are doing it because everyone else is doing it. Now someone who was unsure is suddenly being told, girl, just get a little in your 11S. It's nothing. No. If you are putting something into your face, you need to be sober, informed, in a proper setting, with a licensed provider, using legitimate products, and you need to know what is going into your body. This is not a charm bracelet party. This is your nervous system. I think the bigger issue is that beauty culture has made women feel like aging is some kind of emergency. Like the second you see one line, one fold, one shadow, one wrinkle, one sign that you have laughed, cried, lived, and existed, suddenly you need to schedule an appointment. And it is exhausting. Because women are already told to be pretty, but not try too hard. Age gracefully, but do not look old. Be natural, but not too natural. Fix your face, but do not look like you fixed your face. Stay youthful forever, but somehow pretend it is effortless. No wonder people are confused. And when social media keeps showing 20-year-olds getting preventative Botox, it sends a message that aging is not something that happens later. It is something you are supposed to fear now. That is not beauty. That is anxiety with a syringe. When you put all of these stories together, the message is not that Botox is evil and everyone who gets it is wrong. The message is that Botox has become way too casual. It is common, yes. It is popular, yes. It can be helpful, yes. But it is still a procedure that affects your muscles and nerves. It can change your face. It can change your smile. It can affect your eyelids, your brows, your mouth, your jaw, your expression, and for some people, even how their body feels afterward. And people deserve to know that before they get in the chair, not after. Not when their eyelid is drooping, not when their smile is crooked, not when they are panicking in the car, not when they are calling doctors trying to figure out why they do not feel like themselves. Before, because informed consent should not just be a waiver nobody reads. It should be an actual conversation. What are you injecting? How many units? Why that area? What can't go wrong? What symptoms are not normal? What happens if it spreads? What happens if my face looks uneven? What happens if I react badly? And most importantly, do I even need this? Because the beauty industry will always find something else to sell. A smoother forehead, a slimmer jaw, a lifted brow, a flipped lip, a frozen neck, a face that looks less and less like it has lived. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing this because we truly want it? Or because we have been convinced that aging, expression, and movement are flaws? Because wrinkles are not the enemy. A face that moves is not the enemy. Looking human is not the enemy. So I want to know what you think. Has Botox become too normalized? Or are people finally starting to talk about the risks that were always there?